Roger, we're going live now, so let me get this started. But when I sit down, I'm at our qualification for today. So actually, let me restart that.
2, 1. Here we go, Rick. We're on.
Yeah, and we don't know how long today.
Let's see. Wonderful when it works. Not so good when it doesn't.
Yeah, we're at my office, and yesterday had a major issue.
So we're trying to weave Southern Porches in between the power working and the power not working. So if you're watching and it stops working,
yeah, right. Go ahead. If we go dead, we go dead.
We go dead. That's it. Well, there's a good reason why. It's not yours. It's our stuff.
Yeah, we just got notification. We have Duke Energy here, and I just got notification they're going to be taking the power down again. And so anyway,
besides that, any other good news? Oh, that's tough. That is so tough.
So those who watch already know what I'm doing. I'm trying to get everything organized, coordinated
in the same direction.
We are doing again both Facebook and YouTube today. So if you see the title we put out there, and it's not a rhetorical question, we really would like to know, how do you define success? You know, we talk about, and we're living in a world today where there's a lot of books, a lot of YouTubes produced, a lot of videos on being successful. But do we know what success is, and can we define success for ourselves? So, you know, how do I measure success? Question mark. So again, it's not a rhetorical question. We actually would like to know what and how you, the audience, measure success. And while we wait see if we get any feedback on that, Roger, how do you measure success?
Well, the big thing about success, Rick, is I think it's defined differently, or it's achieved differently in our lifetime. Throwing a lot of people off. I think.
Keep going.
When we were young, I think it was about focusing forward, looking out for number one. If you don't take care of number one, it's not going to work. You got to pick it. You got to be it. You got to feel it. And then because you've best focused on you and your efforts and what you bring to the party, well, it just turned out it was all about you. And we had a society wrapped around the phrase, it's all about you. And they had a generation called the me generation. And so the whole issue of success wrapped around meism. And that's changed. I think that when people do that now, to a lot of people, they feel self-absorbed. They're only looking out for themselves. They only care about themselves. And so where they've interpreted that is selfish. That what we've moved to is you need to look out for number one to be successful, to you look out for number one, you're selfish. And who wants to get behind? And so the one thing you've been taught growing up does not work anymore. What I'm seeing working more is the attitude of success as servanthood, what's called kind of the servant leader, the person who is looking to serve, never looking to be ahead of the crowd. But if they do get to be ahead of the crowd, it's a natural process. It's not that they sought it. It's because they brought it. And again, that's kind of what we're talking about on this show, is the power really of servanthood as success, of going out there and serving others and focusing on others and helping others. You know, I was reminded of this when I was thinking about the Amish and a thing called barn raising. And what they do is they all congregate, the whole community congregates, And in one day, if a fellow farmer needs a barn, they build it. They all come together, and 50 or 60 people get together, and they work together in unison, and they bring equipment, and well, not equipment because I don't use equipment, but they bring, the sweat equity with them. And because of that, wow, the barn gets built. And so I see society gravitating to that image of, what are we doing for the greater good? What are we doing to help others? What are we doing to help people get out of the ditch? Rather than, you're in the ditch, I'm not in the ditch. Thank goodness I'm not in the ditch, and I'm going to, enjoy the benefit of not being in the ditch.
All right. So culturally, you do feel that we're going more that direction now?
Yes, I think we've done a 180 shift. When I think about what we were taught in the 60s and 70s, and the 60s, I think, was a real ramp up to the me generation, and that you're looking out for number one. I think that was a constant message, Rick, to us. And pull yourself up by your bootstraps idea. And that then reminds me of the work of Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, who wrote, that's a fable. Nobody ever makes it on their own. The thought that, the rugged individual, no, the rugged individual died. The rugged individual failed. It was never the rugged individual. It was that person who was able to create team. The team won. And maybe one person got the accolades, but the success was given to all. And we've certainly seen that in the computer industry, where it was just not one person who went out there and did it. Although the myth originally is this lone wolf who by themselves braved through and got success.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're finding is, there were many people. There were many people, especially when the lone wolf dies and the company keeps going. You keep going, oh, wait a minute. I always thought it was this person who made it. And we're finding out, no, it's never a person. It's a group of people. And maybe that one person had the ability, the success of bringing and congealing a team together, and that made the difference.
Okay. So the teamwork, the congealing, how does one know if they are successful?
Well, I think moving forward and being connected is the new definition of success, rather than my dog's bigger than your dog.
Okay.
My dog's badder than your dog. My dog can whip your dog. I think that's the old idea of success. And I think people are tired of that, and they don't support that. But we have a whole generation that was taught that. So there's the rub of, I was taught this, I'm doing what I'm taught, I'm trying to go as I'm taught, but I'm really even though I'm putting a lot of effort and time and energy in, I'm moving backwards.
Yeah. So if we're asking, how do you measure success? Is a big house a measure of success?
No. I think connectedness is the measure of success.
So materialism, you're saying, is not a measure of success.
Well, materialism is good for society. It moves society forward. But it only goes so far before you hit a roadblock. You can be consumerism when people have the ability and the money and the energy to consume is awesome. And I think that was it coming out of the 40s and 50s, we were a consumer, high consumer society. And so it was all about get it, do it. But see, part of what's running us down is we're, because we're connected with a computer and everything, that we're working harder than the people, and we're not. We just thought if we did more, we would achieve more. And I think we've reached a saturation point, Rick, where it's just like you can't. I mean, people have got to sleep. People have got to take care of themselves, and I think people ran themselves. And I think there's a whole generation that ran themselves to a heart attack. You know,
right? But we have commercials such as a Lincoln commercial.
Old message, Rick. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I think that was marketing to an older generation, but I don't think it is a current message, you know, to the current. I think, and we're seeing that in other car ads where they're not actually advertising the car; they're actually advertising where the car could take you, mm-hmm. where the car could get you involved. What the car, you know, you can buy it, let down, sleep in it, camp in it, have so it's not about the car, it's about the experience that the car gives you. But I don't think you can keep that. I think in your 20s or 30s you might be just kicking it. But I seldom see people that have the same velocity of energy today that they had 10 years ago. They've worn out. And I've seen a lot of people that I thought when I was young that they would be what I call mega successful. They were just going to tear it up. And they're not even alive today, sadly. They didn't make it. They burned out. They had a heart attack. They had suicide. They overdosed. They had addiction problems. It's crazy how when you look at things in the long run, in the long run.
That was not God speaking to us. That was
Duke Energy speaking.
Duke Energy speaking to us. So,
yeah.
And Kim's has connected with us again today, but he's saying the same thing as last week. That Facebook just is still coming across. In fact, I'm losing them right now because in Facebook is still coming across distorted. So again, those that are joining us right now, we definitively know that we're having some issues with the power here in my office, and we will kind of like the end of the world. We'll broadcast as long as we can
before the Martians land. Yeah. We'll keep broadcasting till the.
But we just. We just had the lights flash.
Oh gosh!
And I did get a notification from Duke Energy that the power is going out to 1:15 today. So, but like I said, we're still going. We're talking about how do you, I guess, our generation where success was measured by how hard you work, how long you work, how much can you accumulate, how much wealth and materialism do you have. And then we're seeing the pendulum. You're saying you're seeing the pendulum swing a little bit now, where we're actually seeing it is no, enjoy life for the experience.
Well, and a deeper issue there, Rick, is when we grew up, it was the me generation. It was about you, yourself, and I. How good can I do? And I think there's still that philosophy out there that people are selling. You know, you can go out there, you can be rich, you can be successful. Anybody can do it. You can do it. You know, you've got to put in the time, money, and energy on yourself. And over the long run, I've not seen that. That's what I'm saying today. As far as success, I do not see people on the long term have what I would call individual success. If they say they do, that scares me because I know they're lying. It does. I do not see, when I look at people and they've had success, I see hundreds of people, not just one or two, hundreds of people out there doing their piece to bring about this success. And so what I see now today is the power of servanthood, of thinking about others, of considering others, of doing for others and not looking for the spotlight at all.
Okay. And there we go again.
Hello. Oh gosh.
And yet, conversely, I don't know if we've ever have lived in a more divisive society. And so, who is doing this looking out for each other? Because we have become so polarized or alienated in this country that that's my concern. I've already lost one printer, and I think I'm about ready to lose a second printer. But so how do we balance the two from the alienation and the divisiveness that we're seeing today in our society? Because you're right, after World War II, that is what really made the United States the industrial power. Well, first of all, it was World War II, where we had to go into a manufacturing mode and quickly produce war material. And when the war ended, because of the rationing that was required in World War II, and because of the amount of veterans that were coming back and getting the GI Bill in order to get education, we saw great prosperity in the 50s. You know, when we were born, this really was one of the most prosperous times in American history. But we still had, I think, some cohesiveness from what I've read in the history books and so forth at that time. And then today, though, I don't know. It just seems like we are so divisive. So how do we integrate the divisiveness in with the servant leadership?
Well, I think you've answered your own question unknowingly, Rick. I think that one of the things that had happened was a lack of information or minimal information was how we were cohesive.
Yeah.
We were cohesive because we just didn't know any better. You know, that all fake news was quote unquote real news, and everything was taken. Everybody had a kind of a central thought. This is the way to think. This is the way to act. This is what we eat. You know, there was never the idea that, okay, you can still make a decision, but we want you to make, and here was a big change, an informed decision. And I think with information has come divisiveness.
You know, that's an excellent point, Roger, because I do again remember reading about World War II and you know about the rationing and hearing stories of people who lived through that time. But the other point was the information that was provided to the U.S. citizenry at that time was strictly regulated by the United States government. Well, maybe like you would go into movie theaters, they have these reels about how well the war was going in Europe, in Japan, and everything was designed for a cohesive thought. There's one message being delivered that we're doing well, the war's going well. Keep, you know, the radio station. I love old time radio. No, seriously, I do, and I'll listen to OTR as often as I can. And I remember the ads that would go on during the time of the war is just that, you know, we're doing great, but in order to win the war, you have to sacrifice more. You and I are a generation where we really didn't know what is the sacrifice.
Well, there was no central message to sacrifice. See, I mean, as long as in the war, here's the war, here's why you sacrifice. Here's why you don't eat as much. Here's why you don't use gas as much. So again, we had a central, cohesive belief, and it was fed to us. You know, if all you have is one product and you're eating that all the time, and you're told that's the best there is, then you go, oh, I begin to like that.
Yeah.
You know, and that reminds me of some of the things I've heard about France. You know what? One of the delicacies I've heard they serve in France, horse meat.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Then people, they got horse meat. Ooh, horse meat. Who would want horse meat? Well, see, people who lived during World War II when there was no meat because everything had been killed, they had learned to slaughter their horses and eat that, and that had learned to be a delicacy. And so people now saw it Well, they had marketed it as a delicacy when it was a survival technique back in the day. So I think we had the ease of central vision, and we also had less sources of information. So it was basically coming out of one place. It was filtered through the government, and everybody bought the same message. I mean, when you grew up, Rick, how many people did you know that lived life differently than you did? How many kids do you know operated differently than other kids when you were going to school?
Right, and again, that's an excellent point. It was a very cohesive and integrated, demographic that you.
And can you imagine somebody say, "I don't want to give the Pledge of Allegiance"? I mean, what would have happened? That would have assassinated that person if that would have happened. That was just, it's what you did. You walked in step, you lived in step, you ate in step. And so we had that. And so that worked. But when multiple streams of information came in, when there was more investigating, when there was not a central message system that was controlled, I think that has brought about division, because this person picked up on this information, this person picked up on that information. And so the whole idea of everybody looking out for themselves just brought multiple division and conflict now. And I think what we're seeing is, especially in some churches, which I really like, is the idea, we're here for you guys. And then you look back in history, and there was a time and a group that's how they operated. It's not about us, it's about you. What can we do for you? How can we help you? And through these multiple lines of education, we haven't, and it was sold to us that it would make us more connected. Well, Rick, do you feel more connected with more technology, or do you feel more isolated? And so I see people looking and saying, well, and I think this is the fight. I think we have a whole generation brought up me, and they're fighting that. You can do that. You can choose to do that, but it's not going to get you what you want. And the people who plug into that, I've found to be the people who are wealthy. You know, the people who preach that, they don't necessarily get people successful that way. They get themselves successful that way, you know. And so, but I see a whole group of saying, you know, we're going to serve. We're going to be there. We're going to be connected. We're going to do the work. That success is about the ability to create connectability. And that is the new success, the new definition of success.
Well, we had John Kennedy in 1960 say, "Ask not what you can do, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country."
And
we had the Peace Corps developed under his
right. But when it didn't create the bottom line, Peace Corps gone. You know. It didn't feed the machine. Peace Corps gone. Anything that doesn't feed the machine, gone. You know, and I think, and you brought up a minute ago, the car business. I think when we were younger, you know, it was all about status. It was all about what you had, what you drive down the street in your. When we were young, the souped up car. I can remember when I went to school and a guy drove in a Camaro. Oh my goodness. I mean, you can just see the sun shining behind him. It was so magnificent. And now you look at it, oh, big deal, you know. And so there's a shift in that. I see people driving nicer cars, but I don't see that many people impressed by people and what they drive. The phrase is, don't care. Don't care what you drive. And another phrase that I never heard when I was young, but I hear today, it's one thing to buy the car, but it's a whole different thing to fix the car. And that was one of the things I remember about my brother. My brother would say, oh, anybody can buy a sports car. It's not buying a sports car that's an issue. But boy, when you start trying to fix that thing, oh my goodness. And I think Toyota got that concept. And where they made a car, you get in, I'm not Toyota, but Honda. You get in that car, and it just goes. And kind of Holiday Inn. I love their phrase, no surprises. They pay a big price. That's finally what we're saying about with success today. This old idea of looking out for number one and striving and scraping and pushing others down and pushing yourself up. Although it's been told to us that that's success, I'm just saying today, I doubt that. I don't see. Who do you know that's pushing themselves up? It's all about them, and they're successful.
I may know a couple.
Out of hundreds of people you know, Rick.
Right, no, and you're right.
Couple.
Yeah,
Wow.
That's a good point. Plus, I do know that you can no longer work on your car anymore.
Really? Remember when you used to open the hood of the car and you could change the oil and you
knew everything. Yeah, you knew
shade tree mechanic. I love that.
Yeah, and nowadays, you don't recognize stuff, and you need a computer to.
You got to plug it in, and the computer tells you what's wrong with the car. It has a diagnostic system in it.
Actually,
that's space age.
That's one thing. If anybody ever is watching this and is familiar with the automobile industry, and I know we have a lot of BMW people out there and so forth, I've been told that every car built after, I think it was 2010, actually has a GPS built into it, meaning that if a car is stolen, you should be able to track it or somebody, but I don't know if that, again, was just a story.
Wishful thinking.
Or if it really is. Or again, back to the Big Brother world, I know that like Progressive, you get a quote unquote discount on your insurance if you plug one of these things into your car, but it tells them how fast you've driven and so forth, and how quickly you brake and things. But so I really would like to know how much does a modern car tell about you if it was ever plugged in at the dealership?
Yeah. Now you mentioned a minute ago, Kim had wrote in. Did you ever get what he had?
Yeah. No, he was just saying that Facebook, unfortunately, is still going out there garbled.
Yeah, but don't you just hate that? It just drives me crazy.
Yeah, and I've seen our Facebook feed distorted a few times already. So that's all he was saying. And so I don't know if anybody's if this is really going through or not. If anybody is watching right now and can get feedback as to how Facebook's doing, YouTube seems to be doing well. I need to put the YouTube address out there now. I want to figure out if it's the same one. So we're talking about measuring success. We're talking about society, and we do know that the pendulum does swing back and forth in societies and in cultures, and I do agree. I will say one of the things that seems to be prevalent among what we call the millennials today and so forth is, you're right, it isn't all about how many hours can I put in and to get this or that. We're seeing that we're seeing the real estate market change because the millennial generation is not going into buying houses. They're not buying large houses as we used to do. We are seeing that there is a desire for more experiential type of life versus I'm putting in 80 hours at the office this week, and so that's, to me, success. Success is driven by the experiences that there's. Which again, kudos to that, because you're right. I do think there's a lot of people that have worked themselves to an early grave.
Oh, we've seen that, Rick. I mean, can't you think of people that you knew in high school that you thought they're going to kick it, they're going to be so good, and they didn't make, they faltered, you know? And I've just not seen lone wolf. What I'm saying today, I lack the vision of lone wolf success, even though, boy, you get on the internet and everybody's sign up for my program, I'll make you a success. Do this in my program, I'll make you a success. And I'm thinking, you know, the only people who are successful are the people who are selling the program, not the people who are buying it. They've just found a way to take money from you, and that's it. And I think another phrase is, you know, remember the phrase, the man who dies with the most toys wins. Yep. And then somebody came behind that and says, the man who dies with the most toys dies. Yep. And another phrase I heard was, I've never seen a U-Haul behind a hearse. And that's another thing. I can't imagine. I've lived long enough to see how people long for significant people in their lives to die so that they can get their stuff. You know, it's like, goodness, great. You know, people who have loved each other for decades get to a place they can't even talk to each other over, you know, somebody's old jewelry that they never used anyway, but now they're died. This relative wants it. They're willing to bite and scratch and do whatever it takes. And that's a piece of what you were talking about too. I think young people have come to the place of realizing there's not enough hours in the day. I can work and work and work and work. And I love that old phrase, work your fingers to the bone. What do you get? Bony fingers. That's what young people are coming up with, man. We see people working their tails off, and they're just running it into the ground. That you only have so much energy. You only can kick it so long. And so I see this generation moving from a sprinting mentality, which I think we had when we grew up. You know, go as fast as you can in 50 yards. And then I think the younger generation is saying it's bigger than 50 yards. It's longer than 50 yards. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And you know, who in our early generation, who ever even thought of the marathon? If you say, oh, I've run this marathon. Well, now you see hundreds everywhere all over the country. But there was a time when the Boston Marathon, woo, that was really something, or the New York Marathon, because nobody ever ran a marathon. And now, you know, the granny down the street, oh, buddy. Woo-wee. I feel like I'm in the 70s now.
Well, in fact, like you said, we still have the router going, so I'm guessing we're still broadcasting stuff. Yeah, and so if we're staying, how do you measure success, or what do you measure success by? I'm hearing that, you know, success is measured by or what if we look at it and say we know we can measure success, or success is measured by healthy relationships, healthy conflict resolution, service to others.
Yes. And connectability, I think, is a major piece of success now. It's not being number one, it's being a good part of the team. Helping the team, doing your part, and realizing that there are many parts, and the ability to find a group that you can be the best you in a cohesive nature.
While we're talking, and part of what you guys get to see live is I'm going to unplug my other printer before I lose that, and I'm going to unplug my iPad. So that's why I'm getting up. I'm not walking away from you guys.
He's out up. He's out of here.
Yeah, I cannot lose 2 printers in 2 days. And but we can still talk. Okay, so we've got the cohesiveness. Unless I've already lost it. So Look at one. All right.
There we go. That's safe.
iPad unhooked.
Rick's trying his best to save his devices from this electrical storm we're having. Oh, it's crazy. So we're back on.
We're back. Yeah.
Printer saved. Woo!
Printer saved. iPad saved.
Whew.
Obviously, my iPhone's not hooked in, so we don't worry about that. Okay, so to me, that's success. Is to save 4 out of 5.
Yeah. Well, hey, not doing the same thing, expecting different results.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a hard thing when you've been brought up to believe this way and you've absorbed this way of doing things, and then you live long enough to where you hear, that's not the way you do it anymore. Oh my goodness, it is hard to change directions. It is hard to say, okay, that may have been the way then, but this is the way now. And do I have the ability? Have I been given the skill set to change directions, to adjust? So one of the words I hear lately that I really like is flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
because I do not think that was one of the major subjects of our youth. I think it was determination, focus, look out for number one. That really what was being preached was a personal rigidity,
Mm-hmm.
my way or the highway kind of phrase. And I think that you are going to meet, I think people who do that now are just meeting up with such incredible resistance. And I think people are seeing you can't get there on your own. You can't get there by yourself. You can't step on others and get to a better place. You are successful. And I think it was Zig Ziglar who said, if you want to be successful, help other people be successful. And I love that. I did not hear that growing up, but I hear it now.
Well, that's the servant leadership you're talking about, and where true leaders who have that recognition of what servant leadership is are the ones that are successful, and versus the ones that they go back to the old managerial style of more of the whip and pushing versus leading.
What we're looking at here too, Rick, was we used to be an agricultural society. And so everybody had their own little farm. Mm-hmm. And that was your own little universe. You dressed that way, you did that way, your word was gospel, everybody was there to serve you, and who could crack the whip the best had the most successful farm. But as we've moved toward the industrial, I think what we're seeing is that style is resented. The old way looks very rigid and stiff-necked and opinionated, and it is not flexible at all.
Yeah. Well, no, and again, modern managerial science has proven, and we know this ourselves, that people need to feel some form of significance, and that's at work also. And if people feel this one time, but if not, the dollar is important, but the dollar is like number 7 on the list of what is truly motivates employees and what makes them happy at work. And the top are A, feeling a sense of purpose at work, 2, feeling that they are being heard and they make a significant impact at work, and that they're working till you drop over. Versus, I hope we're seeing yet I have 2 son-in-laws right now that are working horrendous hours for their companies because business is just so great, and I feel for them and I feel for their wives.
Well, you know what you call that, Rick? That's called employment. That's what you have to do to be employed today. And we're mixing old styles with new styles. And so it's just tearing people up, you know. I think people are saying, I want to be significant. And the company's saying, hooey to significance. We got to get the job done. We got to look out for the bottom line. And so you preach these different things, and it just tears your mind up. It's just like, goodness gracious. You know, I believe that is why, and I'm not sure, but I believe that is why we're seeing more entrepreneurs now, is that people are saying, you know, if I want to be significant, I need to do something that's significant to me. You know, that I make the company, and that I will have to say, even, and when I look back in older days, the people who were successful are the people who had their own business. Who the business is me, and I'm the business, and you know, I show up and I'm me, and me works, and those people seem to be happy. They didn't need the big thing. They just needed to know that, again, they had significance, and I think that is a huge piece in our concept of what success is. You know. No, you know, it used to be, think about it, when you went to a company, you worked there all your life, and you got to go watch.
Yeah.
And you went, woo, buddy, I've hit the jackpot, you know.
But also, again, as we talked about pendulum swinging, the other thing that we're seeing, which is driving the entrepreneurship phase too, is our generation. And what I mean by that is there was a time when you would go work for an organization, spend 30 years with them, but they also had good pension programs there. They had good opportunities for you to build some wealth in addition to the salaries you were making. This is one of the things that's always interested me about our society. I know part of it is driven by just the fact that because of the Affordable Care Act, for men our age to go be employed in an organization, just the cost of insuring us is much higher than for a 25-year-old or 26-year-old. Yet there's so much wisdom in those that are over 55 who have had these type of experiences. And how old are you?
65.
Okay.
And I'm an old man.
No. Well, actually, I disagree with you. And that's the other challenge, though. I disagree with you because I'm around 64, and the reason I'm qualifying that is it used to be that was the norm, is you make it to 65, you got your gold watch, but you built some wealth up because you worked for the company for 30 years, and they had these pension programs, and you were able to retire fairly comfortably on it. Now we're seeing guys our age, and women, we're seeing people our age that are being let go from organizations.
Oh, you're right next. What was it? Somebody who just got fired from the administration.
Yeah.
Like 2 weeks before.
No, the day before his retirement.
Day before. Oh, there's something evil about that. Oh, gosh.
And I've worked with many clients. In fact, they've all been males, but have gotten to that. But they've gotten to 64. They've been with an organization for a long time, and before they turn 65, guess what? Their position's no longer there. And where I'm going with this, though, we're 65 now. It's young, and it's too. I know personally, I'm not ready to retire, and a lot of guys that I've talked to have tried the retirement at the 65, 66 age. Guess what? They're working again as entrepreneurs and something because they couldn't stand being retired, and we're not designed to be retired at 65. No, not in today's world.
But then the other side is, Rick, like you say, when somebody can go out there and hire a 20-year-old for cheaper than they can hire you, where you bring experience, you bring depth, you bring wisdom, they don't care. Don't care. You know, we've got a bottom line. The power of the bottom line is running the vehicle.
Yeah. So anyway, but we do see a lot of entrepreneurs being developed by really no choice. That if these people say, I'm not ready to retire, I'm not employable because of my age, but I'm going to do something. And so we're seeing some neat stuff coming out of that. Yeah, there are young entrepreneurs, and I think there's a definitive gift that these people have, and power to them. I mean, the Jobs, the Gates at their times, the Zuckerbergs today, these are, like I said, they create wealth and they have a vision and good to it for them. But yeah,
the other side of that, Rick, is they're unfireable. Nothing's worse than to work for. I can remember working for a company 15 years, getting raises, praise, everything you're doing great, you the best in the world, and then one day walking in and say, don't work.
Mm-hmm.
Don't work for us. Bye.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute. Last year I was, the hero. Today I'm the zero. In a year, my performance changed that much? No. Our bottom line ruled us, and you're gone. Bye. And we might have told you you were family, but we've disinherited you, so to speak. And so I think that's another kind of grab, that if you don't look out for number one, who's going to look out for you?
Mm-hmm.
And if you've not built a society, a connection, a group, then when you're there by yourself. When you are told to retire, you're left there by yourself. And I think that there's a whole group of people out there wandering. They're just wandering. They want to do something. They want to be significant. They want to contribute, but nobody lets them.
Well, I think that's why you're seeing the younger generation also saying that, okay, I'm going for the experience because I've seen parents. They say, I don't get it. Why, devote your entire life to an organization, and then, like you said, then one day they'll come in and say,
bye,
we don't need you anymore.
Yeah, and that just says, it goes again. I think part of success is the word I used before, which is flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
What was the truth in the 40s is not the truth now. What ruled in the way people process stuff back in the day is not how they process now. And we're still human beings. We're still doing it. But there have been some drastic shifts that have left large groups of people behind.
And then, of course, somebody like Marissa could answer this better. But, you talk about how culture changes. Again, when we were out in the world, if you had too many jobs on your resume by a certain age, that would be questionable. Why so many job changes? It's my understanding now, what I'm hearing, that basically if there's not several job changes in the first 10, 15 years of your career, they're saying, what's wrong with you? Why did you just stay with this one company?
And so what you focused on and worked on and blood, sweat, and teared over, hoping it would have worth, later on becomes worthless. Mm-hmm. And that just rips you. It's like, goodness gracious. They're moving the target, Rick. They're moving the target.
Yeah, that's good. So we do know, I think it's fair to say that, as we go around this topic of how do you measure success, we're back to there's definitively no issue that if you could say you have healthy relationships in your life, you can consider yourself successful. If you know how to handle conflict in a healthy manner, you're successful. If you know how to communicate with other people, you are successful. That we don't see ads on TV selling healthy relationships. We don't see ads talking about healthy communication.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Didn't you take that in high school? Healthy relationships 101.
Yeah, really.
Successful marriage 203. Yeah. Oh, those were the great. No. We tend, I think, Rick, to be behind the curve. We're reactionary, not responsive.
Right. Yeah.
And I think people who have their hand on the pulse do better, and are flexible do better, and are connected. I cannot stress that enough. In my idea of success today is how connected are you? And the other phase of that is how connectable are you? Can people connect with you? And back in the day, being connected on a certain level was undesirable. That you were not encouraged at all. And now you're greatly encouraged to do
that. And so, and then what kind of legacy are you leaving?
Wow, legacy. Woo. And I hear a lot of people, I love you using that, who say, I hope I'm like that old preacher who you see on TV who's out there preaching, and right in the middle of the sermon, he drops, goes to see Jesus right there. I said, and they say, that is their success, to be doing what you love and drop in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's wild. It's wild. And it's hard to be responsive. It's hard to it's like, again, the metaphor I like, Rick, is surfing. Waves are coming in every day, but a good surfer watches the waves and picks the wave, and the best picker of the wave is the best surfer. And if you don't become a good picker of a wave, then it doesn't matter, because you're not going to have the right wave to surf in on. And even though you have the talent to surf, you don't have the wave that's going to move you. So you have to be a good judger of the waves of your life and be ready to catch them when they come.
Good point. And that's, today.
And again, another piece of that's funny when you see documentaries on surfing in Hawaii, and you look back at the old surfers and the boards they used and the waves they did, and it's laughable. It's like, oh wow, and they were the cutting edge. Mm-hmm. And now you see people go out on what is it? This that you motorized.
Oh yeah, the wave runners.
Wave runners. They pull you out there and they put you in the wave, and the wave is like 15 feet or greater high, and they can kill you. Like, now that say there's their definition of surfing, and they would never consider surfing the old way, using a big old board, long boards in small surf in a pretty mild environment. They laugh at that. There's no thrill in that. It's like, goodness gracious. So we've moved it into a pleasurable, lazical event, into a life-threatening event.
And again, but they always have to luck out. And like I said, watch the waves, but they also have to look at the whole ocean itself, because they know there's sharks out there too. Ooh. And in life, we have to sometimes be sure that we're looking out and avoiding the sharks that are going to be taking bites out of us, because there are a lot of sharks that want to take bites out of us.
Oh, I love that. I love that shark idea. I had not thought about that, but I really like that, Rick, because I think of that girl who was out just lazily doing that. Mm-hmm. And the shark came up and bit her arm off, and part of the board. And she wasn't bothering anybody. No. She wasn't, but wrong place at the wrong time. Boy, doesn't that say a lot about life right there?
Yep. And actually, there's a good movie out there called Soul Surfer.
Yeah, it's about her.
And as I was going through my mind, talking about sacrifice, I have remembered one time, there has been a time in my life I did have to sacrifice, and that was when we had the Arab oil embargo. And then during all that, I was living in Oklahoma, but my dad was in Charlotte, and driving back and forth from North Carolina to Tulsa, and Nixon put the 55-mile-an-hour national speed limit. To me, that was a sacrifice. I had to drive 55 miles an hour.
Rick, that was a long drive.
That was a sacrifice.
Woo, buddy. That's like, I can remember when we went to Oklahoma, and Suzanne said, drive. And I went, let's drive. She said, oh, that'll be a great adventure. I said, that's not going to be a great adventure. You're gonna hate it once you get there. Oh no, I'm gonna love it. Well, let me tell you, that's the last time she ever asked me to do that. That's the last road trip. And I'm also reminded of when Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King traveled across the United States in a car. that was an interesting experience to watching them drive, and you're like, oh man, this is paint drying.
Yep. And I had to do it in a 1972 Oldsmobile Cutlass with AM radio.
Woo, buddy. That's the top of that's the ice cream on the cake there.
Well, Roger, I really have no idea how this has gone out. We'll see in a little bit when we save it. I think we'll close up now, because we're running out of time, and two, like I said, I'm not quite sure, but we'll save it. And hopefully, there's enough in there that came across okay, and we'll just hope that next week they got whatever's going on fixed.
What are we going to jump on next week? For
Who
people?
knows?
Oh, good.
Who knows?
Yeah, your guess is as good as ours.
Who knows? Once again, we're always willing to take comments, and if anybody wants
suggestions,
to join,
no doubt about it. If there's something you want us to talk about, let us know. We're here for you.
But we'll get it figured out. So otherwise, we'll just we'll see everybody next week on the porch.
On the porch.
And again, obviously, we know a lot of people join us after this live broadcast. Roger and I were speaking about that right before, is time wise, but since this is not a local broadcast, and again, where we feel very blessed and fortunate is we have viewers from Vietnam to
Africa,
Zimbabwe. So
Zimbabwe.
So it really wouldn't matter. We could broadcast at 4 a.m.
There we go.
And it'll be somebody's time that
we're there. We're there for
awake,
you.
but there'll be somebody who's not. So
we hope it is helpful to you.
All right. So we'll see everybody next week. And I think, guys, if you just give me a minute, and then I close this up. We got that one closed. And that one closed. Bye-bye.
Bingo. It's
It's still playing, so yeah.